Here.
Welch Janowitz.
Here.
And, Mayor, I don't know if it's proper, but I would like to see if we could have a moment of silence for Jack Podraska, who was buried on Saturday. I think even though he lived in Brexville, as a resident of Brexville, I mean, he was a fixture in Independence. I think almost every family, or most families, who lost loved ones over the years, Jack was the one that, I mean, his funeral, especially before Fortuna's came, he was the only funeral in town. But I just know from my personal experience, when my dad passed away suddenly back in '86, I mean, Jack literally, I mean, got our family through about 3 or 4 months of tough emotional time and mental times and everything. And, you know, and he was always, Jack was always the same. And his personality was a calming, and he was just he and Dottie both were tremendous. So I like, if we can, just take a moment of silence, say a prayer, or you have a fine thought in your mind for Jack Podraska. He had a beautiful service on Saturday. There was a bishop here, and I think 5 clergy, 5 priests, and a fitting tribute to Jack. So I thought I just had to bring that up. With our agenda, we're going to page 2, and we're going to, I don't think we have to go out of order for anything there today. No. Okay, we'll start with the second reading, which is on page 2 of our agenda. It's a new agenda, so I kind of missed, the old one used to have a little in italics, you know, like a little brief.
We're working on it.
Is that coming? Okay, good, because that was always
That's the
nice. But we have on second reading, we're going to start off with ordinance number 2023-54. It's an ordinance approving the tax budgets for the year 2024. This, Vern, you gave us a real good memo that kind of gave us, you know, the highlights. Are there any questions that we may have? This is true that we do this every year. Has to be sent in by July.
Mid-July, yes.
Mid-July.
Yes, and that memo kind of indicated that over the years, the tax budget has become more of a formality. The state of Ohio still requires it, but used to be called a tax budget, and technically we're approving, and what's called, Cuyahoga County allows an alternative tax budget, just a little bit more narrower in scope. And at one time, the state of Ohio and Cuyahoga County required a public hearing on it, and that requirement's been waived since for a while now, so
2002.
don't even need that. And in that memo, I explained that it's basically the main purpose of the tax budget is to certify tax rates for each subdivision or other taxing unit. And for the city of Independence on the property tax bill, it's the 2.20 mils of the total 65 gross residential mills, 58 plus or minus effective residential millage rate. Only 2.2 of those comes to the city of Independence. And of those 2.2, the police pension fund gets 0.30, the fire pension gets 0.30, and then the city's general fund gets the other 1.60. So that's the highlight of the tax budget, and council's had it for a month now, so if you have any questions, we'll entertain it, but otherwise appreciate the adoption. Maggie, I'll get it downtown, and really this is just the first step towards the heavy lifting that comes in the second half of the year. Start working with the administration and laying the groundwork for the 2024 appropriation ordinance, and working with all the department directors on tentative operating budgets for 2024. And we spent a lot of time in 2022, 2021 on the fiber capital plan. So we took a little break right now the first couple of months this year, but it'll be time to revisit that too and start tightening that up for 2024 and beyond as well. So this is just the first step of quite a bit of work to do during the second half of the year, but that's what we get paid to do, so we're going to do it.
Thank you very much. So we'll be voting on it this evening. Any questions for the finance director, Jim?
I just had one, and I was just kind of curious, the HIDA funds.
at one time, they were proving slightly difficult to manage because we were new at this, but has that smoothed out? And it seems to be the same amount of money every year. Do you anticipate any changes in that? Obviously, in this document, it doesn't, but just.
Good question, Councilperson Triguis. It's been fairly stable. Frankly, with the HIDA fund, or any of these really, for the tax budget next year, it's a little early to project with accuracy all these funds down to the dollar. And we haven't really received guidance from HIDA yet as far as what they're looking at for 2024 financially. So for this document, the numbers you see will suffice. Again, it's more of a technical document in nature. The more meatier, weightier figures will be in the annual appropriation ordinance that we'll be diving into third and fourth quarter this year. And by then, we will have some guidance from HIDA on what to expect from them 2024 financially.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We'll vote on that this evening. Thank you, Vern. The next three ordinances are second reading, all deal with compensation, and the finance director deals with the position, being a full-time position, as well as compensation. But we really haven't had time to discuss it. Greg, when do this have to be passed as far as to be effective for the next term?
By July 10th.
So we'll
Monday,
have,
July 10th.
because we really haven't discussed this in a workshop or a meeting and everything.
Well, July 10th is the deadline of the number of days you need it beforehand, but the July council meeting is, the regular meeting is July 11th. And I believe, Law Director O'Brien, you kind of indicated to me that not only has to be passed, but it has to be effective by
Yeah.
July 10th as well. So, if there's some last minute hiccup and it doesn't take effect immediately on the mayor's signature, then
Let me-
that could blow everything up
Right.
too.
So if you didn't pass it tonight, okay, and you did not get a supermajority to pass it, the finance director is correct, that it would not go into effect until the
The fol-
election, the
Following election,
It
yeah.
would not be enacted prior to the 120 days statutory requirement.
Okay, because as I'm probably
And the whole
going to,
purpose of that, obviously, is a longer period of time to let members of the public decide in advance if there's something different with the position, so they can get the paperwork, get the signatures and file. So that's the whole genesis
Yeah.
of sooner rather than later is that minimum 120, but one would argue to pass it well in advance of the 120.
and I know, Jim, you shared with me as far as his ideas, as far as compensation goes. And as far as the mayor and finance, right, really it needs to be adjusted and increased in viewing, at least in my eye, and that's just I don't have any, I'm not gonna be in public office after this year anyway, so for me, I'm just talking as a citizen, but I do know that the amount of work and responsibility that both those positions have, it's not the same position, and Greg, you're better than anybody to say how it was when he first got elected in the 80s, as it is now, as far as how and even the world is a lot different place in that time. But I think the responsibilities that both those positions have, I think warrant an increase in compensation. Now, as far as council goes, that, at least my own personal view, is that compensation was never really a big, the big thing that I had was the healthcare that was provided for and Tom, you're probably the same, you're self-employed. When you're self-employed, I mean, that, to me, that was the biggest attraction we could, yeah, I mean, as far as getting paid nothing would be, all right, the benefit we have from the healthcare, which I don't believe many other councils around here get their healthcare, if I'm correct, Debbie, from what you.
That is correct.
Yeah, it is.
Thought we saw one of those salary surveys, though, that did indicate there were a couple councils that did get the medical insurance as well,
Very few.
and their councils were also compensated higher
Yeah.
than independents
Yeah.
as well.
To me, that really is a different ballgame because of of that, but I would be in support. I think, Jim, you suggested, I think for the mayor, you suggested 110,000. I believe for finance director, you suggest 100,000. And for council, 12,000, I believe the vice mayor, 13,500. I think the 12,000, is that the PERS, is that,
It's the minimum.
That's the minimum.
Mind if I just basically took a mathematical equation. So I took all the salaries that we were provided from representative communities around us, and that, what we'd asked for was communities that are of approximate financial value to independence as well as population value. So it's not obviously a perfect match. We didn't compare ourselves with, Cleveland and Westlake and those big communities. So I just basically did some math, and when you look at the averages, I thought maybe we should be, in the middle somewhere. So we shouldn't be at the bottom, we shouldn't be at the top. But if you just put us in the middle of those communities that were provided for us, those were the numbers that kind of worked out. So it was like 108,300 for mayor, 110 for finance director. So I just basically put idea based saying, well, if we wanted to be kind of middle of the pack, those what the numbers might be. And on the council, the minimum several years ago, the state legislature increased the minimum PERS for service credits to $12,000. And so that's what my reasoning was there. And then for vice mayor, it's 13, I suggested 13.5 because it's $1,500 more now for vice mayor, and I just thought we'd keep it the same.
Councilperson Triggus, which communities did you use? Was there a?
The very last page of the document that was sent to us that says administrative salary survey, base salaries 2022.
any other thoughts on this matter?
I would say the other piece of the puzzle is potentially the value of the hospitalization coverage or any additional coverages as we consider what a reasonable compensation for council is. I know there have been some changes over the past 25 or 30 years. I know that it was cited that it was in the 90s, if I'm incorrect, please correct me, but in the 90s it was $10,000. And somewhere around in the early 2000s, the hospitalization was added. And then the cost of hospitalization in 2003 or whenever it was, obviously would be dramatically less pre-Obamacare. So the value of that hospitalization has skyrocketed. So anytime we were trying to consider compensation, at least when we negotiate contracts for teachers, the part of the package has to do with the total compensation package, not just the salary piece of it. So I would call that to everyone's attention, because that combined with, and I just spoke with John earlier, the other piece you have coming into play obviously is the value of your money is less because of inflation. You might be losing 2 to 3%, but all those pieces should seem to come to play, so they probably should be involved in any discussion.
Mayor, do you know when council started receiving health care? Was that, because it was when I got on in 2000.
Pre-'80s, it was in the 1980s for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So Jim, when you were on in the 90s, it was,
It was an option. Okay.
and I think when we had this, at least I think we've seen this table before, but you're absolutely right. Even what you suggested, Jim, for the mayor and the finance director is still on the low side, even taking this into consideration, so.
Well, I agree. I think mayor and finance director should be increased to keep us competitive, as opposed to council. When somebody's looking to run for mayor or finance director, you're really asking somebody to put their career on hold to do something else full-time. So it's got to be fair, it's got to be worth their while. I had a hard time looking at, from the sheet, and I don't know, as far as an apples to apples within the community, if responsibilities are similar, whether positions are appointed, if it's, you're a mayor slash safety director, if there's other responsibilities included, hard to tell. I guess if it's at the point of pick a number, maybe we could get together later this month of if we ever had any newer or other information versus, you know, Jimmy, great, I mean, pick a number, right? I mean, that's kind of where we're at, but if there's ever, I feel like this won't change again for quite some time, so we should really be comfortable with what we're choosing.
Well, council hasn't changed in 24 years, or 23 years, I think, as far as. And the mayor's was increased, I think, what, 2012, I believe it was, it says in the legislation. And I'm not sure as far as finance director, when that compensation was adjusted, but it's something, surely it hasn't come up that often, or when it does, it usually gets shot down pretty quickly, everything, but I have, my feelings, personal feelings, I don't have any problem at all with the suggestion that Jim gave, as far as the dollar amount goes. I even think at that.
13.5 for vice mayor and what for council, 12 or?
And I think the mayor, even at that, the mayor and the finance director is still kind of on the low side, but at least it's moving in the right direction as far as that goes, because.
We can talk about it.
Yeah, keep in mind, that's a 2022 salary survey, not 2023. And whatever council decides doesn't take effect until 2024. As Councilperson DiGiorno says, we don't change these too often, so they're gonna be there for a while. And I either put it in writing or verbally, if anybody's asked about this the last month, to keep the individuals out of it, keep you 7 people out of it, keep the mayor personally and me out of it, and look at the position and what's right for these positions for the city. And they're important positions, and, you know, council, don't sell yourself short. I sat in those seats as you did, as the mayor did, and especially in the day of social media now, you lose a lot of privacy in your life by agreeing to sit and run for one of these positions. And yeah, we willingly ask for these public positions too, but they come at a lot of personal cost too. And so, you know, the market is what the market is. And I didn't see the one with council salaries, but yeah, not all of them provide the medical insurance to members of council, but I believe a number of them do, and I think Green is one of them, as well as some compensation for council members that is higher than what independents make. And nobody's getting in the public sector to get rich, but there is a sacrifice on your personal time, your personal lives, your personal privacy, and for good people to step up and run, you gotta make it worth their while too. You can't, this is independence, this is not a community that's just barely scraping by. And if we pride ourselves on compensating our employees and our union members at or near the top, you know, you 7 should get the same respect and consideration that all the other employees do too.
Any other comments?
So it's kind of hard to sit here and talk about giving yourself a raise, basically, but if I take myself out of it, because if elected, I can only go one more term. I think the more you offer, the better people you have putting their name in the kitty to try to sit up here and help run the city. I mean, for what we do, and I'm not patting myself on the back, but for what we do and the time we spend, what we receive, it's really pathetic. I mean, I think I see $155 every 2 weeks, or $255 every 2 weeks, plus the health care. So when I started this process 18 years ago, there was a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that after 20 years of service, you could have a retirement and you would have health care. They took that away. So now, unless you make $12,000, you don't get that pot of gold at the end of the 20-year period. And believe me, 20 years is a long time to put yourself out there, getting ripped on just about every month. You can't go to Drug Mart anywhere, I gotta wear a hat and goggles to go there, you know, because a 5-minute walk into Drug Mart turns out to be 45 minutes to an hour. So if you think that the job is just once or twice a month here, you're wrong. I mean, it's a lot of time, and a lot of time away from my family and my wife, so, you know, like I said, it's hard to tell the public, hey, I want to give myself a raise, but I don't even look at it as a raise. I look at it as that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. If you donate 20 years of your life to something, you should get something in return, and they've taken that away from us. So that's why I say the $12,000 minimum for council would just, it would bring a better group of people to run for office, I believe. And as far as the mayor and finance director go, guys, this is a $50 million company. If you think $100,000 is a lot of money to pay somebody to run a company that makes $50 million, go look in the private sector and see what those people make, because they make a lot more than that. And I know it's part-time. You see the mayor's truck here all the time. And when he's not here, he's on that phone constantly. Vern and Maggie put in a ton of time to run this city the way it operates. We're blessed to have them. And take them out of the equation, like Vern said. Don't talk about Greg, don't talk about Vern, it's the position. If you want a high-quality person to be in that spot, it comes with a price. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it.
If I could, just for the members of the public, so there's no confusion. Whatever council does here, it doesn't change their compensation at all.
No.
It changes compensation for the next council, and sure, one can presume that they're gonna be reelected, but there's no guarantee with that. So this change, I just wanna make sure, Councilman Narduzzi, what you were saying is, it doesn't go into effect until January 1 of 2024.
Well, would council be willing to vote on it this evening, or would you feel more comfortable, we had another meeting, discuss it, and then maybe vote on it in a couple of weeks? So we definitely want to get it for 2024, it's without saying. But I'm, like I said, I was comfortable, I think that definitely the mayor and the finance director, we're grossly underpaid at this point, and the need to get that raised. And council, like I said, I'm not part of the equation, but I never ran this thinking about money. Matter of fact, I never thought about money. I've been my whole life, not that I make a whole lot from what I'm doing, but, you know, that wasn't the purpose. The purpose has always been to help people and just get enough to raise your children and your wife. So that was never an issue. Money's never been an issue with me. I didn't inherit anything either, so it didn't come from, but to me, the purpose was the mission of being the best person you can help people with and not worry about. If you do that, I think that God provides you're going to be able to take care of your bills and everything. So I never thought of that being an issue, and thank God I never had to worry about that. But I know it's an important thing. If you want to attract quality people to these positions, you have to provide at least a decent compensation, because it is a lot of hard work and a lot of time that we agonize over decisions. It's not easily made thinking that you can walk away. This is our community. We live here. We have family that lives here. So our main objective is to do the best we can in our heart, and we might disagree, but I think we still have the same objective, and we're all here to do what's best for the community, irregardless on that. So does council feel like we can either take Jim's recommendation, or if we have other ideas as far as compensation goes, we could vote on it this evening, because I'm worried about it. I don't want this to fall through the cracks. And
Law Director O'Brien, are you saying if it passed, say, 4-3 tonight, whatever gets passed, that won't take effect for 30 days?
Well, you know what, Finance Director, I'm trying to find the statute right now,
Okay.
just to confirm that.
Because if that's the case, we're already beyond the July
Yeah,
10th deadline. And so you do, and what do you need a supermajority, 5-2, or?
You need 5.
Five.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you can always amend it and declare an emergency would go into effect at that time.
Oh,
So that is one alternative. is to add, amend all the legislation to add and declare an emergency the moment it's signed by the mayor goes into effect. So that would be a recommendation if you didn't pass it. Again, it's been a long time since I looked at this section, other than putting these ordinance together, obviously came out of my office. I didn't bother to go back and look at it, so I want to look at the enactment versus when it goes into effect. But again, I do remember from many, 2 decades ago when this was raised the last time, that the genesis of, the reason for that 120 days is to put it out into the public. So if whatever council or public officials' compensation changes, members of the public see that well in advance of obtaining a petition and getting necessary signatures. So that's why I've always advocated for this body and other public body, get it passed sooner rather than later, so that it gets published, people are aware of it, and, you may find 5 people running for mayor, 6 people running for finance director, 20 people running for council. I don't think that little bit that the council's gonna get is gonna move the needle, but, that's my opinion.
If that's the case, just only a recommendation from down here in the lower tier, just why don't we have another meeting between now and the end of the month? Give council members some time to dwell on it, because if this is the first substantive discussion you've had, and it's really just an introductory discussion, there's probably more that needs to be discussed, and
It's gotta be
I'm
passed at
sure we could find any number of topics to talk about at a workshop or special council meeting later this month.
I leave Sunday, I want to be back to the 30th,
Oh, July 3rd.
June.
Zoom.
What's council?
He just kept telling you that he can't go in a drug mart for 10 minutes. I assume he's going on a personal vacation. In fact, I think he's making his point.
Do what you guys gotta do. I'd like to hear from every council member though, just to, so we know where everybody stands. I mean, it's,
Well, you put it out there, thank you, and that was very well stated, how you stated it.
Any feelings from Anthony or Dan?
Well, my feelings are that we're all public servants up here. I don't see any of us needing additional funds. I can rationalize with the full OPERS credit justification for many of us up here that are seeking that retirement and those benefits at the end of our terms. And I wasn't even aware, when did that change?
It was just about 2001 or 2,
Okay, so quite a while ago.
been a while. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, it was 2000, during the Kasich administration, it was 2010, my apologies. 11. Sorry.
But I would be completely satisfied with the compensation that we're currently receiving. I think the health benefits are extremely generous. The $10,000 is sufficient for council. Every year, we fill a full slate of candidates. We're not having trouble in that regard. That would be my personal opinion.
How much, because you served in the, how about the compensation for the mayor and?
The compensation for the mayor, so what was the suggestion, 100,000?
110, I believe, for the
110.
mayor, and 100,000 for the finance director. I think it's what Jim.
But based on the comparative surrounding communities, those do not seem out of line. Is Seven Hills currently at 14.9? Didn't they raise that?
They'll never go higher.
But it'll start, I think, in '24.
I thought they just had something on, they just voted on something a year or two ago
Like-
about the mayor's salary, I thought.
Like 45,000?
Yeah,
40
45.
even.
They're gonna correct.
40?
That's an aberration, I mean, you can't compare yourself to that.
Just look at their history, right, what they've had and stuff. Until now, the current mayor is excellent.
Compare yourself to the Beechwoods, the Westlakes, the Solons, the Strongsows. You don't compare yourself to a 14,900 Seven Hills.
Well, then possibly would be willing, we could vote on the mayor and mayor and finance director this evening, and then save the council for a workshop then.
We can listen to
But
everybody.
are you saying if council went from 10,000 to 12,000, you would get that full year credit for the medical?
Correct.
Yeah, there's 7 of you, that would be an extra 14,000 a year in a $50 million budget. I think you guys would be really selling yourself short for $2,000 a year to not qualify for that full year of Oprah's credit for the medical side.
Everybody made a lot of valid points. I don't think we're asking for an extreme amount of money for the different positions. I see the hours that our finance director puts in classified as a part-time job at his salary. I think it's way under market, especially if you went to the private sector. I agree with Jim about the 12,000 for the PERS, and we are a $50 million city, so the mayor, I think, should increase his salary as well, so I'm for that.
Dale, if you, I think you asked a few questions, you have anything to add?
Well, my main comment was just comparing salaries is not a legitimate way to deal with the question.
But what's your feeling as far as the compensation for mayor and finance director? Upgrading them?
Well, does that mean we're changing them to full-time?
To be,
Finance director.
finance director for sure,
Right.
yeah. Yeah.
What about the mayor? Is that full-time now?
I thought I'd been in this position under 3 mayors, and I thought all 3 really worked like full-time positions as far as that goes. I mean, it might say part-time, but I don't think, even when you guys were on vacation, you probably are thinking about what's happening back in my town and everything, so.
That's a fair question, because not all councilmen really realized how much time's put. So that's, it's a fair question,
But
but
I think every mayor that.
you're
we've
on
had
call
that-
24 hours a day, 7 days a
Yeah.
week, period.
Yeah. I think at least the people that have served, and I think the future, I think you want to have the highest quality, and I think they should be compensated accordingly. The responsibility they have, and the number of employees, and the directors that they have to run everything, I think they're definitely worth, whether you term it part-time or full-time, I think it's worth, they're worth being, no matter who is in that position. So it's possibly we could, I mean, I'd be willing to vote on all 3 if you wanted to tonight, but at least the mayor and the finance director, I think we should. To me, they're grossly underpaid, and I think the council, again, I never paid much attention as far as the, PRS or that. I always, the main thing was always the hospitalization to me was the godsend. But what council think, would you want to vote on all 3 packages and?
We're fine.
Yeah, let's do it.
John, you're getting?
I'm good.
Okay. Well, then, let's take them one by one. We've talked about the issues. Ordinance number 2023-60 deals with the compensation of council members and the vice mayor. We have a blank there in section 1. Do we have a motion to have the council member at 12,000 and the vice mayor at 13,500, as suggested by Councilman Tracus?
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please, Debbie.
DeGeronimo,
Yes.
Grindel,
Yes.
Narduzzi,
Yes.
Tagliati,
Yes.
Tracus,
Aye.
Averka,
No.
Walchanowitz.
Yes.
Very good. So as amended, we'll be voting on that ordinance this evening. Ordinance number 2023-61.
That was 13.5 and
13,500 for the
12.
vice mayor, 12,000 for
Got it.
council member. Ordinance 2023-61, it's ordinance fixing the compensation of the office of the mayor in the city of Independence. And section 1 has the blank there is fixed at, and I believe, Jim, you're Do you want to make a motion for 110,000?
I would so move.
I'll second that.
That's low. Let's just call a spade a spade. You look at that, if we're looking at that Brecksville salary survey, Independence has a larger budget than every one of those cities probably except Strongsville, maybe Beechwood. I don't know those mayor salaries there, but,
We're increasing by 35,000 from 75 to 110. It'd be hard to double it and say, well, let's go to 150,000 or that, or, I think 110,000 is, to me, is, what you suggest is reasonable, so.
We got a first and a second.
So we have a first and second, so Debbie, would call the roll, please.
Sure. Grandel,
Yes.
Narduzzi,
Yes.
Tagliati,
Yes.
Tracus,
Aye.
Laverca,
No.
Walchanowitz,
Yes.
DeGeronimo.
Yes.
And we are filling that blank in with $110,000. And if we look at ordinance number 2023-62, this ordinance requiring the position of finance director in the city of Independence be full-time and establishing compensation. And I believe it's on section 2 at the bottom of the legislation. Jim, are you making a motion there to?
I would move in section 2 to add $100,000 effective January 1, 2024.
Second.
We have a second by Chris. Call the roll, please.
Narduzzi,
Yes.
Tagliati,
Yes.
Tracus,
Aye.
Laverca,
No.
Walchanowitz,
Yes.
DeGeronimo,
Yes.
Grandel.
Yes.
And now with this piece of legislation, Councilman Tracus had raised some suggestions that the state of Ohio uses with some of their full-time employees, that they cannot hold additional, they can only hold board appointments and committee assignments and no other employment. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
so under state policy, not state law, like cabinet officials, which I would equate this type of a job to, are not supposed to have significant outside income, they call it. So in other words, you're not working two full-time type jobs. So I think with respect to, and that's why there's a clause in there that says that, if there is any type of outside employment that's financial related, is that still in here, or did we change that?
No,
No, I'm
I
looking
guess,
at the wrong.
I guess I'd say, it was-
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I
I'm
made
looking-
the change.
I was looking at the wrong ordinance, yeah, sorry about that. So if there was anything that was financial related, that at least there would be a public acknowledgement of that, so that the legislative body and the citizens could know that. But, yeah, I mean, the concept is for a full-time employment, that you're here full-time, and not working, several different jobs.
Section 4.
Sorry about that. I was
Because
looking at the
our
wrong one.
previous finance director did hold multiple jobs. And
Yes,
was the
yes.
finance director for multiple communities, as well as the controller for McDonald's. And
They're all God's children, but,
but he did a terrific job doing them all, so.
Very good. Well, we'll be voting on all three of these ordinances this evening then, with the amendments that were made tonight. Thank you, everyone. Let's move on to first reading, and on page 3 of the agenda, we have ordinance number 2023-63. This ordinance amending section 143.16 of the codified ordinances of the City of Independence relating to paramedic certification. And Chief, I know, Chief Riga, that was one of our topics of the Safety Committee meeting that was held last week. Would you like to give us an overview?
Nowadays, we don't get as many candidates taking our tests. It just seems to be a change in times. Back 10, 11 years ago, it was a different situation there. We're looking to get the candidates coming in, having all their certifications already. But what we're finding right now is there's a lot of candidates that are in school, they're graduating in a few months, and they can't even sit for our test because the ordinance doesn't allow them to submit an application.
Pull your
unless
mic
they have
down,
certification.
Chief. Pull your mic, use your mic for the audience, please.
Sorry. So what this ordinance will do is eliminate that. It'll leave it up to the commission to write any restrictions within the announcement for the test. So essentially, we're changing it so that they just have to have their certifications at the time of appointment. So then we can then thereby let them sit for the test and take that test and qualify for a list, but they cannot be hired until they obtain the certifications needed.
I was looking at the legislation. I think the way this is written here is still the old, the recommendation of the change is on the memo. If you look at the legislation,
Now, we
it
may
talks
make that-
about, from the say, prior to original appointment. But it still reads, the old language is on the legislation, so I don't know if we need to,
Yeah, we'll have to get that amended.
well, to amend that. If council notices that on the memo that we have,
Yeah.
under the background information.
You're right.
That's what we want to, that's what we're changing it to. What's on the legislation here is still the old,
In section A, you're referring
in
to?
section A,
Yes.
Anthony, yeah.
I would, Mr. Vice Chairman, I would move that Section A in the memo be incorporated into Section A of the legislation.
This is the old.
That's essentially what we're doing, is we're substituting.
Yeah.
Very good. So we have a motion from Councilman Tracus. I'll second that. Call the roll, David.
Sure. Tagliati,
Yes.
Tracus,
Aye.
Roberta,
Yes.
Walchanwitz.
Yes.
DeGeronimo,
Yes.
Grandel,
Yes.
Narduzzi.
Yes.
See, that's what we're voting on, but that's the old.
Yeah. I don't know what happened.
Yeah. Very good. Any opposition to approving this evening? Or any further questions of Chief Regan? We'll put this on the consent agenda. Debbie?
Okay.
Ordinance number 2023-64 is ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Cleveland Clinic at Work for professional services in connection with the fire department's wellness evaluation program. And again, Chief, that was part of your presentation last Tuesday.
Yeah, we had a 3-year agreement with Cleveland Clinic at Work for physicals for the fire department. These are basically occupational physicals that are required by standard within our industry that basically screens firemen for potential medical issues that are related to what we work with, so cancers and cardiac issues and things like that. So we had the clinic for the past 3 years. Our contract was ending. I did go out and solicit quotes from other vendors that provide this type of work, both brick and mortar companies that are here in town and some that come in from other areas with a mobile type setup. So in vetting all those vendors, the Cleveland Clinic, they were the only ones that came up with a 3-year agreement with us that would reduce costs over time. And they were the lowest in addition to that. So although their price did go up from last time, and there was another fee for it's a med direction type for the evaluation of the guys and guidance in that respect. So so the end result is a total of $69,180 for the 3 years, which will be paid at yearly at $23,060.
I seen the cost per firefighter is $640 per year.
Correct, correct.
Any questions for Chief? Any opposition?
Chief,
Oh,
this is an annual requirement, it's part of the
Yes,
job,
it's,
but it's not a
It's
pass.
actually in the collective bargaining agreement, in addition to the fact that NFPA 1582, which is our national standards, recommends us to have this physical every year.
Somebody could not refuse to do it,
They can't refuse to do it? No.
but if they fail it,
The way it is currently written in our contract, if there was something critically medical wrong with them, they would have to let us know because they'd have to take time off to get that corrected. But if there was something minor, we wouldn't necessarily know that, but the individual would be on notice that they have something going on from their physician. So
okay,
it's the closest to a fit for duties that we can get right now.
okay.
Any opposition putting this on a consent agenda this evening? Okay, Debbie will place this on the consent agenda. Ordinance number 2023-65. This ordinance declaring improvements to certain parcels of property in the city of Independence, Ohio to be a public purpose for purposes of sections 5709.40 and 5709.42 of the Ohio Revised Code, and exempt from taxation, describing public improvements to be made to directly benefit the parcels, requiring the owners of parcels to make service payments in lieu of taxes, establishing a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of service payments and related authorizations pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Sections 5709.40, 5709.42, and 5709.43. And Jessica, this is basically known as the TIF ordinance regarding the Welty property.
Correct.
Very good.
Yes, so as you all know, Welty Building is building a 155,000 square foot Class A office building on Rockside Woods Boulevard North. CBiz, who is their lead tenant, will be occupying approximately 60,000 square feet of that building. For nearly two decades now, the city has capitalized on the tax increment finance program to help capture and redirect funds to the city's public infrastructure funds. And so that's exactly what we'd like to do with this, is to, again, apply the TIF to this property and use those funds for public infrastructure in the area. As with other TIF programs or TIFs that we've done in the city, this would also keep the school district whole. So both the Independence Local School Districts and the Cuyahoga Valley Career Center would still continue to receive their taxes as they do now.
So I think in your memo, you say that over a 30-year period, the life of the TIF, that it will generate almost $5 million for the city.
And that's being conservative, without knowing what the fiscal office will appraise the building at once the project is complete. My calculations right now are saying $5 million to the city of Independence and about $6.7 million to both the Independence Local Schools and the Cuyahoga Valley Career Center.
Jointly, combined,
Yes.
you might say. Any questions for Jessica?
When will CBiz be occupying the building?
I'd imagine about the September timeframe.
Possibilities of any other tenants in that?
We have not had any discussions about any additional tenants in that space yet.
Any other questions for Jessica? Any opposition putting this on the consent agenda this evening? Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Ordinance number 2023-66 is ordinance authorizing participation in the Ohio Department of Transportation Cooperative Purchasing Program. And Dennis, you gave us the memo on this. We're already participating in this, but every 2 years we have to
Yes, that's correct.
pass over.
This will basically allow the city to purchase off the ODOT contract. We'll have an opportunity to purchase, asphalt, salt, vehicles through them. This is an action, unless council would approve this, we can't even ask for pricing off the ODOT contract. It gives us another way to compare prices as well.
Dennis, have we utilized this consortium or this?
Not that I'm aware of.
I see. But we have, I don't know how many of these programs are we a part of?
There's 3 or 4 cooperatives that we purchase off of currently, but we can compare prices. And, as a matter of fact, Director Walchanowicz, when he was pricing his lawnmower, which is on legislation later on today, we found substantial savings with another cooperative.
I see. Any questions for Dennis? Any opposition putting this on the consent agenda? Thank you, Dennis. And we move to ordinance number 2023-67. It's ordinance authorizing the renewal of the agreement with Kimball Companies Incorporated for recycling processing services. I guess this runs from October 1st of '23 through September 30th of 2024, an amount not to exceed $60,000, I believe.
Yes, that is correct. It's a 4% increase over what we were paying last year for recycled processing. But after discussions with Director McKinley and actually Kimball, the representatives, Kimball's herself, and checking some other additional pricing, the 7613 is very competitive.
I think I've read in the notes, there's so far 48,296 was expended? Was that over the last year or 11 months? Or,
I believe that was last year for the contract period.
I see.
We're asking for 60,000 just because it's an as-needed basis, and just to have a little buffer there.
Very good. Questions for Dennis?
And what does it cost per ton to landfill our rubbish?
Recycling is there is a premium that you pay for that. There had been some discussions in the past if whether or not we just take that, waste and dump, or the recycled products and add it to the landfill. A couple of, things that came up was, we feel that our residents are in the habit of recycling, and our recyclables are what's considered clean. So they're very, it's easy to find people to bid on our recyclables. And we just hate to take a step backward. We think, felt that it's a responsibility. And I guess that's up to council, though, if they would like to, revisit recycling.
I'm just curious.
I may help you out here. So depending on which landfill it's going to, you'd be charged a tipping fee based upon what the county is, a couple other fees, but it's generally around $7.50 a ton.
$7 a ton.
50 cents a ton, maybe some other charges associated with that, but under $10.
And is there any guarantee that they are actually recycling this material?
Yes, there is. Kimball is audited. This program is through the Solid Waste District.
Yeah.
And it is, they audit Kimball. They do spot audits, and we can even have our recyclables, have a spot audit on it to find out the value of it.
Very good. Any other questions for Dennis? Any opposition of putting this on the consent agenda? Thank you, Dennis. Debbie will put that on the consent agenda this evening. Now we go on to ordinance 2023-68. This ordinance accepting the bid option of Cargill, Inc. for the purchase and delivery of rock salt for the 2023-2024 snow season pursuant to the Joint Municipal Improvement Consortium. And I guess it's 90,000 less than last year that we have, not to exceed 240,000.
Yes, that's correct. Actually, Cargill's going to hold the price that they charged last year, which was $52.21 per ton. Just to give you a little history of it, back for the 2020-21 snow season, we're paying $63.41 a ton from Cargill. So this price is very favorable. Cargill has always met our delivery requirements. I don't know if the council remembers, a number of years back, we went with Compass Minerals. Their price at the time was $45.97, but there were a number of delivery issues. The quality of the rock salt that we were receiving was not up to the standards that we like, and Cargill is proven to be a proven commodity, and it's a reasonable price.
Last year was the lowest amount we paid for salt. Was the cost 90? I read 98,478
I believe so.
because of the mild winter we had. Any opposition?
No opposition, but I have a question.
Yes.
Ron, how much of the salt did we use? I remember in the past, there was some limitation as to how much we had to use or had to buy, and where do we stand related to that requirement?
So our minimum last year was 4,400 tons. The same minimum is required this year for 4,400 tons. We did hit our minimum last year, and we have about 2,000 tons left over from last year.
Now, Ron, are these stored, is this stored down at, on Old Drexel Road?
Yes, I know that.
Is there any stored at the service garage?
No, nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, the bid specifications remain the same. Delivery is in 24 to 72 hours, and just as Director McKinley mentioned, it's 80% minimum, 140% maximum. So we're protected.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Any other questions? Any opposition putting this on the consent agenda? Dennis, thank you very much. We move to ordinance number 2023-69. It's an ordinance authorizing the purchase and delivery of a ride-on zero-turn 72-inch mower for the Recreation Department. And Tom, would you like to?
Yes, Vice Mayor. This was, mower's going to replace our 2006 model Skag, which is currently in the shop. It's at Northampton Power Equipment needing extensive work, and which we're not going to do. We're going to end up auctioning it off through Gov Deals. And I did have this in our 5-year capital for the past 5 years, saving up for it. I had 18,000, and this machine came in at 17,600. This is for a Kubota with a diesel engine, which would give us a lot of longevity.
Very good. Any questions for Tom?
Tom, why are we going with the Kubota? I know the service department uses Skags. You've got Skags, you've got a Toro. I don't think we have any Kubota mowers.
Because we're getting good reviews on them from what I've been reading on them, other people have had them, and our current Kubota equipment's good, high-quality equipment.
The
And,
side-by-sides?
yes, and also these are made in Georgia too, they are made in the United States, so.
Any other questions for Tom?
I know we talked about in the service department trying to standardize. Is there going to be a disadvantage to having a Kubota in that we have Skag and other equipment?
Well, the other thing with Skags, they don't make this one with this Kubota diesel engine, and we currently do deal with the two dealers, Middlefield Farm and Garden and Akron Tractor, who deal with Kubotas, and they repair anything and get parts there, so we shouldn't have any issues as far as that goes.
Thank you.
Jim?
Actually, Tom, is this a mulching mower?
No, it's a rear discharge. We could get mulching blades for it, but the mulching blades we see tend to clump up more, so we were getting standard blades with it.
Okay. Thank you.
And the reason why we go with rear discharge is because they're safer in parks. It doesn't launch, like if there's a ball laying on the ground, it doesn't launch the ball 40 feet. Everything's contained to the rear of the machine.
Makes sense, thank you.
Any other questions? Any opposition putting this on the consent agenda? Putting that, Debbie, on the consent agenda, let's move to ordinance number 2023-70. It's ordinance authorizing the disposal of unclaimed or forfeited property held by the city's police department pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 2981.12A2. And Chief, I know that was a topic of our safety committee meeting last week. If you want to give more details.
Yes, sir. We discussed this at the safety committee meeting, as Councilman Grindell has already stated. These have all been seized by the court. We have a court order on all of these pieces of property, and we are turning them over to a federally licensed firearm dealer named Atwells, and we will be receiving trade-in credit. This is similar, this mirrors what we did last year, and this is due to the proactive work of officers taking firearms off of the street.
Any questions for Chief? Are you putting this on the consent agenda this evening? Thank you, Chief. Ordinance number 2023-71. This ordinance authorizing funding for road and right-of-way repairs necessitated by numerous water main breaks, leaks, and or water valve and or hydrant repairs. And Don, I know we all are aware of what happened in Pleasant Valley here the last couple of weeks and everything. And this is a yearly, we have this in the 5-year plan every year for $150,000. I think you said there was $50,000 remaining from last year, but I think that'll probably be used up with this event that we had.
Correct, Vice Mayor. We thought we had enough money to pay down the outstanding work that we had already performed, but hadn't yet been invoiced. But then when this situation occurred on Pleasant Valley, we felt prudent to encumber this funding for 2023.
Very good. Any questions for Don?
Don, has Pleasant Valley been the only issue?
The only one of significance. There's been a handful of small, minor incidents around the city on more collector roads or residential roads, nothing of the severity that we had to contend with on Pleasant Valley. things that we were able to manage at a lot less cost and effort with this funding.
And what is the approximate age of the line that broke on Pleasant Valley?
And just looked at the maps earlier today, in the 60s. They say that the pipe is the age of is in the 60s it was installed. So 50, 60 years,
And what size pipe was that?
12 inch.
It's not too old.
Any other questions? And Don, just, has the Kleber project started yet, or?
It has. We did some tree clearing, and we did have a contractor for Dominion doing some gas service connection lowerings to minimize and eliminate conflicts for the future work that we are proposing. The contractor does intend to get started here in another week or two.
I see. I keep driving by looking for, for the signs and everything too. Very good, thank you. We'll put this on the consent agenda this evening. Ordinance number 2023-72, ordinance amending ordinance 2021-56, which established the Home Improvement Assessment Public-Private Partnership Program for the purpose of assisting city residents to maintain and assure properties remain in compliance with the codified ordinances, including but not limited to for stormwater management, creek maintenance, and sewer maintenance. Jim, I think you worked on this.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. So I was happy to work with, after a workshop session that we all had where we were discussing the program, and Mr. Riley came in, as well as Don, our city engineer, and it gave some feedback on how the program currently works, as well as the mayor's vision and some of the ideas that members of council and the public have had. This is kind of a reworked ordinance from prior. Obviously, there's some differences that we were looking at in the past based on experience, and I won't enumerate all of them. They're all in the ordinance for those to see. We can certainly keep it on first reading and have another workshop or put it in Utilities Commission or something if you want to do that and go over it in greater detail. But it is substantially different than it was 2 years ago.
First reading utilities?
That's okay, yeah. Yeah, and thank you for community services and for engineering for the good input that you put in on this. And hopefully it will be pretty close to in shape for us to look at it again in July. We'll call a meeting here in June to try to get this going.
Very good, so this will be held on, or kept on first reading and referred to the Utilities Committee.
Good job, Jim.
Yes,
Thank
excellent
you.
revision. The final page 5 of the agenda, ordinance number 2023-73, which is a companion to the other one. It's an ordinance authorizing the appropriation of $200,000 and the payment of the city's proportional share of the participation in qualified and approved projects relative to the Property Improvement Assessment Public-Private Partnership Program. Keep this on first reading too, since it goes hand in hand with the other. Again, that'll be referred to be discussed at the Utilities Committee meeting also.
And is there supposed to be another page attached to this? Because it references 6 projects that have been completed, and then it references 5 additional projects, but I don't.
Under attachments, if you're looking at an electronic version, maybe you gotta click the link. There is a, we can't find 11, those projects total $17,027.
But I'm counting
It was
6.
attached to 72, the previous ordinance, and if you look at it, it's attached to that. And it has the projects are all enumerated there.
Right, but there's 6 in that chart, and if you read the legislation, where does it say? It references, saying it now, but it references the 6 projects that have been completed, which apparently are attached to the legislation, and it references 5 additional projects, and it says they're in attachment A. But I don't see those.
Councilman Tagliati, I believe that was a prior version. We decided that the projects that were in the queue, we were going to discuss at the upcoming knowing that there was gonna be utilities committee meetings scheduled. The ones we were trying to address with the second ordinance was just to reconcile the ones that were completed and payments had been made.
Okay, so we're
But I
not,
believe we got this information at the workshop, correct? But it's not attached to the legislation.
So we'll,
It's not here.
so we'll make sure everybody has it for the Utilities Committee.
Thank you.
it's confusing.
So we'll keep both of 72 and 73 on first reading. And we moved on to ordinance 2023-74. And it's ordinance accepting the proposal of Infinity Construction Company, Inc. for professional general contracting services in connection with the Civic Center Kitchen Renovation Center. And Emily, I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. At the council meeting last month, council approved legislation for us to work with AECom, with a mechanical engineer, and they also had an electrical engineer come out. They were able to then put together a scope of work that we could provide to JME to then go out for the bidding process for contractors. And so we went through their bidding process, received initial quotes from 2 contracting companies based on the scope of work that they were asked to look at, which includes, I'll name a few, just job oversight and project management, demolition of existing walls, removal of bad ceiling tile, removal of fire door and fire filling of a wall opening, removal of existing utilities, not to be reused, trenching for additional drain lines, addition of drain locations, a new wall, new electric box, new utilities, new wall and floor coverings, and some rework of the hood. And so after receiving those initial quotes from the general contractors that had input from their subcontractors that they brought out on site, Infinity came forth with a proposal that was $80,000 less than the other proposal that we received. And so feel very comfortable working and moving forward with Infinity with council support.
Any questions for Emily?
Don't we have some sort of piece of legislation that we're required to receive 3 prices on things over $15,000?
So because of working with JME Design, they're responsible for the bidding process, so the city themselves did not handle the bidding process.
So didn't we approve, Emily, working with them earlier this year with the understanding that if they were going to design something rather unique for us? Was that not what we thought we were doing?
So JME Design, when we approved legislation for them, they did the design of the kitchen and then also essentially the project management of it. So they were responsible for reaching out to contractors.
This isn't the same firm that,
This is not the
Oh,
same
I'm
firm.
sorry,
So JME Design is the design company for that, essentially the project management site. And so then we have to then, and legislation was approved previously for an architect, mechanical engineer, now we're in the general contracting phase. So this is the next step in the kitchen renovation process. So following that, once this is approved, then the next thing you'll see from me again next month is approval for appliances.
and to the question, we did not bid this?
So JME did bid that with 2 different contractors, but they're responsible for the bidding process, which may or may not have been the same as the city.
So they're the general, and then they bid it to the subs, is that what you're saying?
JME is the design company, so they went out to bid to the general contractors, and then the general contractors, as part of their quote, bring out subs to make this the final quote.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, sorry about that.
Is JME going to stay involved, I guess, as our owner's rep oversee anything, or is that you, Emily?
So JME Design will still be involved at the high level. The day-to-day communication between the contractors and the subcontractors who come on site will flow through me, but the high-level communication will remain with GME.
And then you rattled off a lot of the proposal. It wasn't in here, like this is all of the things Infinity won't do in the proposal, but it's basically a full gut of the space.
It ends up being that way. So the list of items that I read is just the list of things that JME sent out to the contractors about the scope of the work that they would have to complete. So because of the addition of the dishwasher, which is the #1 priority with the kitchen, there needs to be the necessary drains there. So essentially the floors is being ripped up, walls are being moved. So it's gonna be basically like a giant hole in the Civic Center, if you will, until this initial work is done. And then we order the appliances and throw it back in. So it's essentially, it will end up looking like a gut for the majority of the kitchen, yes.
Did Infinity provide a list of any subcontractors, or are they self-performing?
They have subcontractors. I do not have a specific list.
Yeah, I know, but first of all, I was surprised to see a contract of this size, because Infinity is a big company, a very reputable company, so I'm surprised they would do a job this small considering, but I happen to know that they have their own people, they don't sub out, unless they tell you it's their own employees.
Precision does a lot of work for Infinity. I'm not involved of any work of a proposal on this project. But if there's something, a saw cutting or something like that, there's a potential that Precision could work there, but I'm not aware of anything.
Disclosure.
Okay.
I really was surprised to see them at this small.
Yeah, yeah. And then this is the project, recall that the state's gonna reimburse us, once it's complete, the state's gonna reimburse us $100,000.
That is correct, yes, minus administrative fees.
I will abstain, yes.
So I think we'll vote on this separately so that John can register his abstention.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Emily. Yes, we move on to ordinance number 2023-75. This ordinance amending section 157.02 of the codified ordinances of the City of Independence relating to part-time employees, paid time off, and health insurance benefits and providing for compensation. I believe we had an amended version at our position.
Yeah, the chart was missing from the original.
I see. Great. And Bridget, thank you. We'll get your input here.
Good evening.
Thank you, Bridget.
Essentially, what we are doing in this first ordinance here is really just consolidating previous legislation and cleaning it up. So for the part-time off schedule that we had previously legislated, that was based on days versus hours. So we went ahead and we changed the schedule so that from an administrative standpoint, we're able to administer this benefit. The other piece here is the health insurance. Essentially, there was contradicting legislation that did not read well with our contract with Anthem. So basically, we do have to have a 90-day waiting period in order to offer the benefits to part-time employees, and that is what the adjustment in this piece of legislation is going to do. It's going to put us back to that 90-day waiting period and make it, once again, more manageable from an administrative standpoint.
That's 76, right?
75.
75, yeah.
75, but the adjoining piece, the other piece,
So then we have
76.
the next piece, yeah, so they do kind of work in combination with one another. Again, we broke up the previous legislation, which was 2022-68. 2022-68 actually went through and it illustrated all part-time benefits, all part-time compensation. It actually listed a variety of different positions, talked about uniform allowances, and also training for part-time employees. What we have found is that uniforms are already offered to the part-time police and fire employees as well as our service employees. So to legislate that, I think it was just causing some confusion. So we were able to clean up that ordinance and remove that piece. Again, we split up the part-time off benefit and the medical piece into one ordinance. And then we went ahead and we took the compensation and we're illustrating that in a separate ordinance. So truly, when you look at our part-time positions, instead of actually listing each position in a specific range, we went ahead and we said, okay, we can take the 2022-8 schedule of positions for non-exempt hourly employees and utilize that to slot our part-time employees' salary, or compensation, I should say. So basically, again, there was contradicting legislation. We had a chart that referenced part-time employees, seasonal employees, but then we had a separate piece of legislation that had different numbers and hourly ranges. So by consolidating everything, we were able to just say, okay, here's the chart for our non-exempt employees that are hourly, whether you're a full-time employee, a part-time employee, or a seasonal employee, everyone will be in that non-exempt chart. Does that make sense? I know it's confusing. There's a lot. I don't know if you have anything to add, Greg.
Well, no, I would just say, in working with the finance department and human resources, we make these changes in non-codified ordinances, so we thought collectively, this is pretty much what you've passed in the past. We're gonna codify them, so now when you make changes in the future, we can go to the codified books, make the changes and put them back in the books, as opposed to doing a search, seeing if you made a change 10 years ago and the section is not keeping up. That's really what this is.
Right.
And,
So-
and if this works as we think, we may start to put other pay ordinances and everything in the codified ordinance.
And to further elaborate on that, we are not looking to increase pay ranges for the part-time hourly employees. We are literally just working within the language that was previously legislated, but cleaning it up and consolidating it into 2 different ordinances. Okay.
The only comment I have is, it is a bit confusing, even with the verbal description we just received. And we don't have copies of 2014-14 and 2022-68. We have this amended version, so we don't know what we're actually changing, what is new and what is static from the past.
So in other words, are you referencing some sort of, if we had the previous legislation and we had the strikeout for
That's
any
typically
language
how
that
we
would change?
Yeah, that's typically how we receive our legislation, so we can
Sure.
understand what we're changing and what we're enacting.
That makes sense, and that's certainly something we can do.
Except for this box.
Nothing's changed?
Well, I can say that the wording has not changed materially, like we said, we had days, we moved it to hours to be more. I don't know about the PTO schedule chart, that's a little unclear to me, and whether or not those days have been increased or decreased. But the wording in both ordinances was just taken, I did it personally, from the ordinance reference in there and just placed into a codified ordinance. That I can tell you.
But wasn't it codified already if it was
No,
in
no, it was just
2022-68?
ordinance, yeah.
Oh, they were just
And
ordinances.
so we had to go do a word search, and candidly, just type in, and in fact, these are the ordinances listed there are the most recent ordinances. I think I could probably go to 88, was the originating ordinance, but they were never codified. And so I think we're codifying them now. And there is one change. I did put in the definition of seasonal employee.
Thank you.
Because we did not have seasonal employee anywhere in our codified ordinances. So, and there was, it seems to me that the city, for whatever reason, just looks at their pool people as seasonal, but it's not. We actually have seasonal people during the holidays, we have seasonal people, so I was trying to make that more clear because sometimes it got a little confusing in finance.
Just the result, it just gives us flexibility in staffing.
It does, and to be quite honest with you, as hard as this was to explain to you, I do have to say, from an administrative standpoint, it can be very difficult for us to have to go in and pull different pieces of legislation and make sure that we have the most recent when we do not have these items codified. So to Greg's point, by codifying these, 2 pieces of legislation, it gives us more of a direct, route to obtain the
No,
information.
I guess I'm still confused because 75 is amending the codified ordinances, so they were already codified and were,
No. These are new sections. I have to amend the codified ordinance to create new sections.
well, the next 76 is a new section. This is the way it reads. An ordinance enacting new section 157.03, and 75 reads
That's for
an
the
ordinance
seasonal
amending
employee.
section 157.02 of the codified ordinances of the City of Independence.
Because there
'Cause
was, let me put this, there's no reason to rush this because this is already passed by previous councils. We're just trying to clean it up, which obviously I didn't do a very good job. Let me get you the ordinances.
Okay, yeah, if I could just see the.
Show, and you can put them side by side.
Better understand.
So we'll just leave it on first.
We'll
reading.
leave that first.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We'll leave both these on
Thank
first
you.
reading.
First reading's fine.
Okay.
Just to clarify that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bridget. And Mayor, that
That's
completes.
it. Okay. Ready? Well, we'll just wait for this. We'll just, when they get here, then we'll.
I think someone wanted to sign in real quick. What's it say?
No, we're not, because it passes.
Oh,
We'll come back to that.
All right.
We'll go and come back to it, okay? Okay. Greg's got it. Okay, ready? Good evening. We have the regular meeting of City Council of Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. Clerk will call the roll.
DeGeronimo?
Here.
Brendel?
Here?
Narducci? Here. Tagliati?
Here.
Tracus?
Present.
Roberta?
Here.
Walchanowitz?
Here.
And Pastor Wigger will be here shortly, and we'll come back to him to make sure. But for now, if you'd stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Audience participation? Okay, we start with Andrew. Come on, Andrew, help me.
C-O-N-K-E-Y.
Okay, got it, Andrew.
Good evening. As the Mayor said, my name's Andrew Conkey, live at 7823 Stone Road. And as I'm sure you all are familiar with the property at 7905 Stone Road, which happens to be my neighbor. Just up here to bring it to the attention, as I'm sure you've all have heard, the condition that this property's in. It's truly unfortunate, I guess we could say, the condition that the owners let it get to. And I'd just like to get some answers about it and see where we're going to get it corrected. And I do want to say that I'm not the person that thinks that any level of government should be able to tell somebody what they do with their property, but there's got to be a line. And I think
So
like the
you
line
are
is
if there's
safety.
cases.
What's that?
So you are if the event creates a situation that's untenable.
That is what was it, the last word?
If it's untenable, if it's an unfortunate situation that you can't deal with, then government has to intervene.
Exactly.
Okay, I'd make sure,
And the
okay, so
level
so let me update you. Make sure that Dar gets your phone number, and we'll follow up with a call. We've had several residents, and we've done this for several years now. Try and get them, they've got their attorney involved. We've been patient to try to get them to move cars and clean things up, and we're done. So we're going to go proceed with action. If we don't have action before next council meeting, there'll be something on the agenda at the council meeting.
Very good.
Okay?
I appreciate that,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
But make sure on the way, make sure you give Dar, I'll call you. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Chuck Schroeder.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Chuck Soder. I live at 6606 Bexley Court. And the reason I'm here is because last year there was a very nice looking sign put in our subdivision at the entrance. However, the name was wrong. It was King's Coat. And the sign was taken down and gone. And I'm just wondering what happened to our sign, and are we going to get a new sign that says Brampton Hunts? That's actually the name of the subdivision.
Right, it's not King's Coat. So
No.
that was taken down and returned to the gentleman that put it up.
Okay.
Mayor, it was put up, it said King's Coat. It was put on property that really isn't the developer's property. Right. The developer, Mr. Ziss, and his wife called. The service department removed it. It's still sitting in the service department, but the resident who put it up was told he could come and pick it up. So it was wrong. There was no permits issued. He had no permission to put it where he did. And he also took down some trees, which is of concern to the people who own the property. So as far as getting a new sign up, you have to go through the whole process of going before a planning commission. was taken down by the developer's request by the city.
If, Chuck, if,
Individual put the sign up? Yes. One of your neighbors had that paid for it, had it put up, but they didn't have permission or follow the proper procedure.
Because unfortunately, we don't have an HOA.
Right.
In our development.
Because actually, the service department, we fixed up and improved some of the area, put mulch down and make it look better. Other residents in your area would complain. But the sign, we got a request, and I think Debbie Beal, you have a copy when she called us and asked us to get that sign.
Because I'm not mistaken, didn't Mr. just give that piece of property to the farmhouse on the corner?
I don't know all the details, but I know the trees that were taken down and the bushes that were cut were on Nestor's property, and they didn't give any permission for that.
So if the neighborhood wanted to have a sign put up, what would be the process?
they would contact the building department, City Hall. And then
Okay.
we can go through the whole process with them.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Betsy Green.
Hi, I'm Betsy Green. I live on 7904 Stone Road. I'm also a neighbor of Andrews. Mr. Kohara's, Ed Kohara, who owned that house initially, died in 94, 95, something like that. That house has been vacant ever since that time. We live across the street. Andrew lives right next to him. We live on the other side of the street. So Mr. Kohara owns the property next to ours, which is all wooded. So over the years, my husband's cleaned up maybe 5, 6 trees that have fallen from his property onto our property. And just recently, I have pictures. These trees are enormous. They were dead. They came down. And I tried to contact him 3 times, just putting letters in his mailbox because I have no idea where he lives and what his address is or anything. But, you know, I notified him that these trees have fallen now and they're holding up, they're being held up by like 6 other trees. So when these come down, it's dangerous. My husband, we can't even clean it up. He can't because if you pull these trees out, you don't know what's gonna fall on top of you. And just recently, people die from tree branches falling down. It's dangerous, and this guy has been so negligent. It's just unbelievable that nothing has been done over.
Well, let me clarify that. Something has been done. A number of cars were removed.
That's right.
But it's not to the city standard. So we try to be very patient with residents. You know, some of them have extenuating circumstances. Some of them, they don't live there, they're not responsive. We go through a methodical process of being respectful and then becoming more deliberate. And eventually it ends up before council. We've had several situations where it ends up before city council where they authorize the administration to clean it up. And that's the next step,
Didn't that already happen though before? Wasn't it back?
No.
Maybe not even a year ago that the council had said that he is negligent and that they were going to clean up the property or erase the property.
Well, then we were then notified that he had hired an attorney. And so we met with the attorney on site, we've had discussions with them, and there was some improvement, and all of a sudden it just went flat again. So I heard you and Andrew, and we're going to, and now that council is well aware of it, so that when we introduce, if it's not resolved, and we introduce it to council, it'll be very clear as to what our issue is.
All right, he has had a couple of tree service companies come out because we're right there, so we
Right.
want to know what's going on. And so he has got estimates to remove these trees.
But nothing happens.
Nothing happens.
I-
It's
yeah.
gonna fall on our shed. It fell, we had to move our camper because we usually park it there. It's just really getting
Betsy,
really
it's
frustrating.
Andrew, Betsy, we've tried to be respectful, and when they bring in lawyers, then we try to be more respectful, but we're done.
Yeah.
We're done. I mean, I'm done.
Well, I
So-
hope he can clean up the trees.
Well, we got to make sure, first, there's a series of things that have to be done, but thank you and Andrew, thanks for coming up, and now council's well aware of it, and we can make sure we can take more direct steps to resolve this issue.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you, both of you. Okay. Is the pastor here? Oh, come on up and say a prayer to protect all of us and give us some divine intervention, would you?
Only I had such power. Let us pray. Where do you dwell, O God of glory, and where is your blessing? Our massive doors and strongest gates cannot contain your majesty. False hearts and deceptive words only hide us from your face. They are nothing. O God of all creation, open the gates. Fling the doors wide and let oceans and rivers sparkle with your glory. Bless the world, we pray. Free up every heart, lift our souls, and let the earth shine with blessing. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Reverend, thank you very much. Appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be here. God bless. Thank you. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the regular council meeting minutes of May 9th, 2023?
So
The Streets and Sidewalks Committee meeting of May 11th, 2023, council workshop meeting of May 23rd, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And they are adopted. The different department heads will submit their reports. We have legislation. We have ordinance 2023-54 on second reading.
Title only?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance approving the tax budget for the year 2024.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Any questions on the adoption? Call the roll.
DeGeronimo?
Yes.
Grandel?
Yes.
Nardisi?
Yes.
Tagliati?
Yes.
Tracus?
Aye.
Laverca?
Yes.
Welch-Janowitz?
Yes.
And it's adopted.
Thank you, Council.
We have ordinance 2023-60.
Title only?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance fixing the compensation of council members and the vice mayor in the city of Independence as amended.
Motion to adopt?
Second.
Any questions on the adoption? Call the roll.
Grandel?
Yes.
Nardisi?
Yes.
Tagliati?
Yes.
Tracus?
Aye.
Laverca?
No.
Welch-Janowitz?
Yes.
DeGeronimo?
Yes.
And it's adopted. We have ordinance 2023-61.
Title only.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Ordinance fixing the compensation of the office of mayor in the city of Independence as amended.
Motion to adopt?
Second.
Any questions on the adoption? Call the roll.
Nardisi?
Did Jim have a question?
No, I did not, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Tagliati?
Yes.
Tracus?
Aye.
Laverca?
No.
Welch-Janowitz?
Yes.
DeGeronimo?
Yes.
Grandel?
Yes.
And it's adopted. We have ordinance 2023-62.
Title only.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance requiring the position of finance director in the city of Independence to be full-time and establishing compensation as amended.
Motion to adopt?
Second.
Any questions on the adoption?
I had one, Mayor.
Yeah.
Councilperson Tagliati, you raised a good point earlier. We did have this part-time before. Do you think that is a better setup? Would that attract more people, or does it? You did the job for a little while.
I did, yes. The previous finance director held numerous positions. It's council's prerogative.
What does everybody think about that? I mean, we would set this at the lower rate of anyone in the area here. I think it would be, next to Seven Hills, it would be the lowest paid finance director in the area.
I'm not sure what the issue is.
Well, I'm just,
Part-time.
yeah,
Oh,
I did a little bit of homework. The CPAs in the Cleveland area, according to the ladders, start out at about $49,000 a year and go up to about $500,000 a year. So we would certainly be on the low end of of a CPA, was it relates to that type of thing.
So we would have to amend it to a part-time position again? Or leave it as a part-time position?
Because that's the discussion.
I'm not sure what the, I prefer it to be a full-time.
Or full-time.
Position.
Sounds
Call
like
the
what
roll.
you're proposing is to not make it full-time, but, and then keep the salary at 100?
That's what I was thinking or musing, or,
Look, I've been very consistent since charter review and now this ordinance that the complexity and size and scope of Independence's budget, that the CEO or the CFO should be a full-time position. And it should be compensated accordingly. And frankly, even at that 100,000, yeah, it's 35,000 more than what it was, but the council just adopted ordinance 2023-61, increased the mayor's compensation by 35,000, but left it part-time. And now the proposal on the table, the way it is now, is to raise the finance director's position by the same amount of money, but increase it from part-time to full-time. And now I hear, well, then let's make it back to part-time. And look, this is Independence. This is not another city. In our vision statement, it's to be the premier community, or a premier community, not just every other community. And I think if you keep it part-time, you know, it doesn't do the position justice. I've given it full-time attention, but that's just me. But I'm not gonna be around forever, and it's still an elected position, and the number of people in the city of Independence who, yeah, there's people that technically qualify by the charter, but as CPAs have told me, I can't do that job. I have no idea about governmental finance. Private sector and government, it's two different animals. And so the number of people that can get elected to this position in the city of Independence that actually do it are very, very few. And it's why, consistent again, in front of the Charter Review Commission, I suggested it being an appointed position. I don't think it should be an elected position, but that ship sailed, so if it's gonna stay an elected position, at least it's gotta be compensated fairly for the duties and responsibilities. And I don't wanna mention the cities, because I don't wanna get any mayors or people in trouble, but there's a local community with a budget that's not nearly Independence's size, and the finance director was making about 95,000, went to the mayor and said, look, I'm underpaid, I'd like to go to about 105,000, and the mayor thought about it and said, no, not gonna take you to 105. Finance director walked, easily got another job in Northeast Ohio, another community at 125,000. Mayor in the original city says, all right, I'll just go replace this person. Well, mayor found out reality, nobody's applying, and anybody who did was not qualified for the position. And the story I got was the mayor had to put his or her tail between his or her legs, call back the person that he or she let walk for a $10,000 raise, could have had that finance director for 105,000, now got that finance director to quit the $125,000 job they just took and had to pay 142,000 to get them back. They could have had them for 105, but they were being penny wise and pound foolish, and the finance director called that mayor's bluff, and now instead of getting 105, this finance director is getting 142. And I'm not saying that this position's got to pay 142, even though it's got a budget larger than this community. But you guys and gentlemen, and well, it's all 8 of you are gentlemen, so I could say that. It's across the country, there's a lack of people going into accounting in the first place. And then on the back end, there's a shortage of qualified, competent people to do governmental accounting and finance. The GFOA says it, other publications have said it, and this mayor of this city, who could have had their finance director for 105, and now ended up paying 142, found out firsthand what the market is for finance directors in Northeast Ohio, and that was just in the last 12 months.
Okay, anything else? We have ordinance 2023-62 on, I need a motion to suspend the rules. Or no, adopt. We have a motion second. Any other questions? Call the roll.
Tagliati.
Yes.
Tracus.
Aye.
Ververka.
No.
Walchanowitz.
Yes.
DeGeronimo.
Yes.
Grindel.
Yes.
Narduzzi.
Yes.
And it's adopted. The consent agenda. Approval of the consent agenda items will be read individually into the record, and the consent agenda will then be voted on as a whole by one motion and one roll call. There will be no separate discussion on these items. Can I have a motion to read the consent agenda items by title only?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Ordinance 2023-63, an ordinance amending section 143.16 of the codified ordinances of the City of Independence relating to paramedic certification. Ordinance 2023-64, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Cleveland Clinic at Work for professional services in connection with the fire department's wellness evaluation program. Ordinance 2023-65, an ordinance declaring improvements to certain parcels of property in the City of Independence, Ohio, to be a public purpose for purposes of section 5709.40 and 5709.42 of the Ohio Revised Code, and exempt from taxation, describing public improvements to be made to directly benefit the parcels, requiring the owners of parcels to make service payments in lieu of taxes, establishing a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of service payments, making related authorizations pursuant to Ohio Revised Code sections 5709.40, 5709.42, and 5709.43. Ordinance 2023-66, an ordinance authorizing participation in the Ohio Department of Transportation Cooperative Purchasing Program. Ordinance 2023-67, an ordinance authorizing the renewal of the agreement with Kimball Companies, Inc. for recycling processing services. Ordinance 2023-68, an ordinance accepting the bid option of Cargill, Inc. for the purchase and delivery of rock salt for the 2023-2024 snow season pursuant to the Joint Municipal Improvement Consortium. Ordinance 2023-69, an ordinance authorizing the purchase and delivery of a ride-on zero-turn 72-inch mower for the Recreation Department, Revision 1. Ordinance 2023-70, an ordinance authorizing the disposal of unclaimed or forfeited property held by the city's Police Department pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 2981.12A2. Ordinance 2023-71, an ordinance authorizing funding for road and right-of-way repairs necessitated by numerous water main breaks, leaks, and/or water valve and/or hydrant repairs, 2023.
Motion suspend.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion adopt.
Second.
Any questions on the consent agenda adoption? Call the roll.
DeGeronimo.
Yes.
Grindel.
Yes.
Narduzzi.
Yes.
Tagliati.
Yes.
Tracus.
Aye.
Ververka.
Yes.
Walchanowitz.
Yes.
And the consent agenda is adopted. We have ordinance 2023-72.
Title only?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance amending ordinance 2021-56, which established the Home Improvement Assessment Public-Private Partnership Program for the purpose of assisting city residents to maintain and assure properties remain in compliance with the codified ordinances, including but not limited to for stormwater management, creek maintenance, and sewer maintenance.
And that'll remain on first reading, and it'll be referred to Finance Committee.
Utility?
Excuse me,
Utilities.
Utilities, sorry, I looked at Jim and said Finance, okay. We have ordinance 2023-73.
Title only?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance authorizing the appropriation of $200,000 and the payment of the city's proportional share of participation in qualified and approved projects relative to the Property Improvement Assessment Public-Private Partnership Program.
And that'll remain on first reading and referred to Utilities Committee. We have ordinance 2023-74.
Title only?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance accepting the proposal of Infinity Construction Company, Inc. for professional general contracting services in connection with the Civic Center kitchen renovation project.
Motion to suspend?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to adopt?
Second.
Any questions on the adoption? Call the roll.
Tracus,
Aye.
Laverca,
Yes.
Walchanowitz,
Yes.
DeGeronimo,
Abstain.
Grindel,
Yes.
Narduzzi,
Yes.
Tagliani.
Yes.
And it's adopted.
Just
We
point
have
of order.
ordinance
Point of
20
order, Mayor.
I'm sorry?
Point of order, should we have Councilperson's DeGeronimo's name taken off the ordinance in light of his abstention?
Yeah, I would remove his name from, as an introducer. Would you please? Thank you, that'll be done.
Thanks, Jim.
We have ordinance 2023-75.
Title only?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance amending section 157.02 of the codified ordinances relating to part-time employees' paid time off and health insurance benefits and providing for compensation, revision 1.
And that will remain on first reading. We have ordinance 2023-76.
Title only.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance enacting new section 157.03 of the codified ordinances of the City of Independence relating to seasonal employees' compensation.
And that will remain on first reading. Let's see, there being no other business before this honorable council, I want to thank everyone for being here this evening. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And for those that viewed the council meeting by Zoom, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This council stands adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you, department heads.
Recording stopped.
Okay, am I going to sign? Did you get my, just 1 second. Did you get my pen?
Next month.
Oh, bummer.
I'll be retaining a bobblehead for my.
You know, we're on cruise control. We haven't been there before, so last year was a lot of people. I think we kind of got, we do it the same as last year.
Yeah, Carrie said that she won't be able to, as she asked, Katie's gonna be on vacation. No,
I mean,
No, I don't disagree. I just, at least we could, at least I could have gotten the data on the value of the vehicles.
no, I forget it. You know,